Hello, I'm Gonzalo from IES Eladio Cabañero, and today I'm going to talk about a very important innovation to fight against climate change. So, as you all know, in the last few decades, climate change has become worse, and in part, it's our fault, because we have been doing things such as polluting, not recycling, or even not reducing. And in the case of recycling, it's because people think that it's boring, that they won't make a big change, or they are basically lazy about that. So, for this kind of people, my team and I have been working on a very important innovation that it's a special bin. This special bin is called the Ranger bin, and it is a normal bin but with artificial intelligence built in. And first, it has a container where you can put the rubbish, and then this rubbish is classified into different categories depending on the type of material it is. So we have categories like paper and cardboard, plastic, glass, and even food. So once it is sorted, it is divided into different bins and plastic bags. So you may be thinking that this Ranger bin is not important, or even that it's not necessary. But in this part, we have to talk about the second function, and this is that in the container there are some blades that will depend on the type of material, and these blades will cut into very small pieces the rubbish, and then this rubbish will take up much less space, so that you can save on plastic bags. So by recycling, you reduce the amount of plastic, and what's more, you won't have to go to the container as often. And now you can think that plastic bags will be much heavier now that the volume of rubbish is smaller, but for this we have a solution too. That is that this Ranger bin has a pair of wheels so that you can push right away the bin, and then you won't have to get struggles with this bin. So think about it. Now you know all the advantages that it has and what it helps the earth. So yeah, think about it.
Do we need bees, and why? That's an easy question. Yes, we do. Put simply, bees pollinate plants, which means that they carry pollen between plants of different sexes to help them reproduce. They also can carry pollen from one part of the plant to the other one to fertilize itself. Also, they are essential for the survival of these species because they avoid inbreeding, which would be really bad for any kind of plant species. Of the thousands of these species that we have in the world, most of them, they have like some flight patterns and floral preferences. Like they are different from each other, and most of them, they have co-evolved with the plants in such a way that the size of those bees and their behaviors almost perfectly suit the plants they pollinate. So what will happen if all the bees in the world die off suddenly? That will cause major rippling effects throughout the ecosystem. For example, most plants, some of them like the bee orchids, those plants, they need special pollination. So only a kind of bees can pollinate those plants, and they would most likely die without human intervention. So, for example, imagine because of the bees, some of those plants go extinct. That would affect the ecosystem they are part of, the food chains they are part of, and they would most likely cause the extinction or the decline of some dependent organisms. Let's talk about what will happen to the animal kingdom. For example, the bee-eater birds are a kind of bird that consume those bees. So in this scenario where all the bees die off, these birds will have no food. So the extinction of bees would cause the extinction of these birds, which would also cause the extinction of the animals who eat those birds. So it will be like a chain reaction of the extinction of several species. Now let's talk about the agricultural world. What will happen in the agricultural industry? The extinction of those bees will be like a radical, like a big change it will suppose a big change in human nutrition, but it will most likely not cause famine. That will happen because the human calorie intake is mostly composed of cereals, which are air pollinated. That means that they don't need bees to be pollinated. So, although some species of fruits and vegetables will be affected by those bees, cereals, which are the most important ones for all diets, would not suffer. So, if someone ever tells you that the extinction of bees would cause famine all around the world, they are wrong. It will not happen. Although human pollination is a possibility, in case of all bees dying, human pollination is also a possibility, but it's so expensive and so unproductive that it will not happen. For example, if that was the case, the flowers of the plants that need pollination would most likely to be grown by people who, they want to keep those species because they would be essential for nutrition. Those are some of the reasons why these bees are so important. They fertilize these plants, and if they die off, that will be like a chain reaction of the extinction of several species. Although it will not affect human nutrition, bees are really important for the economy and for the health of the ecosystem.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Antonio Becerra, and I'm going to talk to you about climate change. As we all know, climate change and greenhouse effect is a problem that hits the Earth's surface, and this is produced by greenhouse effect gases. Unless you are an orange ex-US president, you should know that these gases are CO2 and methane, the two most common. The CO2 is a gas which is commonly produced by the combustion in car engines. When an oil molecule, which is C12H26, reacts with oxygen, produces 12 molecules of CO2. And the other gas, methane, is produced during the refinery of oil. in petroleum. This gas is produced in huge amounts and is liberated to the atmosphere, in which the methane reacts with the ozone layer, producing that one ozone molecule reacts with methane and produces CO2 and steam. The two problems are that we need to reduce the concentrations of CO2 and methane liberated into the atmosphere. The easiest way to do this is to reduce the car use. Just imagine this example. You want to travel here from our town to Madrid, and you are using your car. You are using 12 molecules. But if you are using a bus with other 50 persons, you are using the same 12 molecules. But it's not only your personal case, it's the case of you and the other 49 persons. So, using a bus uses 12 molecules. But if each person of the bus goes to Madrid by a car, each one, it would be 600 CO2 molecules liberated to the atmosphere. The difference between the two of them is a really huge gap that we need to reduce. The other problem is the methane. We need to reduce the methane levels, but it's not as easy as the CO2, as we will need to develop a new way of producing oil, being more eco-friendly and efficiently liberating less CO2 levels. So I just wanted you to know that these reactions produces pollution and how to avoid them. Thanks you.
When we think about our planet Earth, it is difficult not to think that there is plenty of water in it. After all, it is called the blue planet, isn't it? However, you'd be surprised how much climate change affects our rivers and oceans' water level. Recently, nature seems to be giving us kind of a heads up, as the Aral Sea, which was once the world's fourth largest lake in the world, has already dried up to a quarter of its size. And hear me out here, because we are talking about 1/4 of 68,000 square kilometers. That's kind of like a Western Europe country. These days, the village of Karautsiak, where the Aral Sea is located in western Uzbekistan, is pretty much of a dry place. Surrounded by a dry landscape with dry scrub grasses and salt-crusted oils, it's hard to believe that the village was once among the banks of the swollen river, which was 30 miles away from the fourth world's largest lake in the world. To these days, it is difficult to grow any type of crop in the village of Karautsiak, which is a very serious problem. The government of this village is already looking into solutions for the farming problems by testing new types of crops to be grown in the areas left by the dry oceans. Why? Because after 50 years of drying out, because this lake started to dry out like 50 years ago, it's been already assumed that the water is not coming back, so they better start looking towards the future and try to move on. Climate change, besides climate change, makes these changes, makes these adaptations even more urgent. For example, the temperature in the Aral Basin has already risen up to 3.6, increased by around 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And the shrinking of the Aral Sea itself has created several problems, such as, for example, the water has disappeared, the air has become drier and it has lost losing this cooling effect that was created by the lake nearby. In the light of these problems, in the light of this ROC problem, the government of Cabañero is gonna need help, and I mean international help. While they try to deal with the ROC problem, we must start to become aware as a community, as humans, about what climate change is and what it is able and it is already doing to our planet. Some solutions, for example, could be the provision of water, for example, of the missing water, and overall it is of utmost importance that we foster measures against global warming, such as recycling, using public transport, or, for example, avoid using too much water at home. And so, as a conclusion, I would say that it is vital that we start to realize that there are problems we don't notice, because 50 years ago this lake started to dry out and we did nothing. So we should all be concerned about this and try to keep safe the oceans and rivers and lakes of this planet of ours that is so to be called the blue planet.
Agriculture is very important in our life, because if agricultural production stops, what are we going to eat? Climate change represents one of the greatest challenges of the 21st century for agriculture, as extreme weather conditions threaten the stability and the productivity of crops. In response to this problem, biotechnology has emerged as a useful tool for the development of more resistant crops. Climate change has altered the weather worldwide and has brought more frequent and unpredictable extreme weather events, such as droughts, floods, heat waves, and changes in water availability that are negatively impacting stability and the productivity of crops. In this context, biotechnology presents itself as a possible solution to the climate challenge, with the use of manipulating genetic techniques. It allows the introducing of specific genes into plants in order to improve their characteristics and to adapt to these new environmental conditions. Climate change is a reality that agriculture in the 21st century must deal with. Thanks to biotechnology, to the introduction of specific genes, plants can adapt and flourish into extreme environmental conditions. Biotechnology offers real hope for the future of agriculture, ensuring food security and their permanence in this constantly changing world affected by climate change.
Hello, today I would like to talk to you about an important issue that affects our daily life and our planet, the climate change. I'm going to focus on the effect that have the climate change on the water. I'm going to talk about the effect that have the climate change in precipitation. In places where didn't rain before, now raining constantly, and also can be flooding. And on the other hand, in places that used to be wet, now have a lot of drought. These changes affect the agriculture, the food provides, and the ecosystem. drops, for example, have devastated some crops and also killed some animals in many parts of the world. Another significant effect is the melting of glaciers and ice sheets. Ice is a huge reservoir of fresh water, and its disappearance will reduce the water supply for million people. In addition, rising sea levels causing salinization in coastal aquifer. The intrusion of salt water into fresh water makes devastating of communities that depend on the water of the wells and the aquifer. Also, salinization is not only unfit for human consumption, also affects the biodiversity of the freshwater ecosystem. Now I'm going to talk about how the climate change affects in Spanish seas. On the coast of Cantabrian seas, it appears a larger number of Portuguese caramel jellyfish. That is a jellyfish very poisonous. This jellyfish is used to live in the open sea, but because of the global warming, the temperature of the water high, so that the jellyfish began to reach to the coast. Finally, I must mention one of the most important effects that have the climate change in Spain, in the Mar Menor. Recent years, we have seen an increase of dead fish. This is due to the increase of nutrients. This makes the sea an oceanic green soup because of the larger amount of algae and phytoplankton that prevent the entry of the oxygen.
The environment and climate change are issues that are of increasing concern to society. The environment refers to everything that surrounds us: air, water, animal, and plants. Climate change, on the other hand, focuses on changes in the Earth's climate. The environment suffers from problems such as air and water pollution, deforestation, and loss of biodiversity. Air pollution is caused by the emissions of gases and particles that come from factories, automobiles, and other industrial processes. This can cause health problems in people and damage the ozone layer, which protects us from the sun's ultraviolet rays. Water pollution occurs when the chemical and waste are dumped into rivers, lakes and oceans, affecting marine life and our own health. Deforestation is another serious problem. It consists of the massive felling of trees, which affect the ecosystem and contributes to the climate change. Trees are important because they absorb carbon dioxide, a gas that contributes to the global warming. Additionally, they provide habitats for animals and help regulate the climate. Climate change is the result of the accumulation of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. These gases, such as carbon dioxide and methane, trap heat from the sun and trap it near the earth, causing global temperatures to rise. This causes extreme phenomena such as droughts, floods, hurricanes, and melting of the polar caps. The main causes of the climate change are the burning of fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and natural gas, which release large amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Deforestation and intensive agriculture, which release other greenhouse gases, also play a role. To address this problem, it's important to take measures such as reducing energy consumption, using renewable energies, conserving natural resources, and promoting sustainable practice in agriculture and industry. We can all contribute to taking care of environment and stopping climate change. Every small action counts.
Plastic waste is all around us. It is found in the air we breathe, in the fish we eat,
and in the water we drink. Plastics also have indirect negative impact throughout their life cycle. As scientists, leaders and other important persons meet in Glasgow COP26. There are some facts that plastics consumption and production impact an atmosphere and natural environment. Most people think don't realize that plastics originate from fossil fuels. In plastic industries, accounts around 60% and in the future generate around 20% by 2015. The long end of the cycle life of plastics means that if they are not recycled or deposited in a controlled manner, plastic waste generated GHG emissions when exposed to solar radiation in both the air and water. Around 80 million tons of plastics originated in South Africa are not managed properly and consequently end up in the ocean, where they emit methane and ethylene due to exposure to sunlight. Discarded synthetic polymers in the world. Although recycling could significantly reduce the impact of plastic pollution on the environment and its contribution to circular economy. Principles applied to cement, aluminium and other metals. On the other hand, we highlight marine garbage, which although we are not aware. Every minute, the equivalent of a truck of plastic waste is dumped into the ocean. It's a monstrous amount. Pollution generally by plastics in the sea breaks down into microplastics and contributes to climate change, both through direct GHG emissions and indirectly by negatively affecting ocean organisms. Plankton represented between 13% and 50% of carbon dioxide emissions from anthropogenic activities, but after ingesting microplastic, their ability to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere decreases. After reflecting on the great impact that plastics have and serious consequences on our society, do you think the same, or do you think the poorly managed plastic waste on the climate as well of life and ecosystem is a development challenge? Urgent to stop climate change and this protect our flora, our fauna and our lives.
Today, I want to talk to you about a critical problem affecting our planet, the melting of the poles, and its impact on biodiversity. This phenomenon is not only a clear sign of climate change, but also has a profound repercussion on ecosystem and the species that inhabit our planet. The melting of the poles, both in the Arctic and the Antarctic, have reached alarming levels in recent decades. Temperatures in these regions are rising faster than anywhere else in the world. According to NASA data, the Arctic ice sheet has decreased by 13% per decade since 1979. This melting not only contributes to sea level rise, putting whole community worldwide at risk, but also alters the habitat of numerous polar species. Polar bears, for example, depend on sea ice to hunt seals, the main food source. With the reduction of ice, these majestic animals face increasing difficulties in finding food and maintaining their population. It's not just polar bears that are in danger. Species such as ulules, seals, and various types of seabirds are also seeing their habitats disappear. This melting also has cascading effects to impact global biodiversity. The melting ice releases a large amount of fresh water into the oceans, altering marine currents and consequently global climate. This can lead to changes in precipitation patterns and temperatures, affecting ecosystem and species far from the poles. Biodiversity is essential for the health of our planet. Each species, no matter how small, plays a crucial role in the ecosystem. The loss of biodiversity means the disappearance of these roles and the weakening all ecosystems. An ecosystem with less biodiversity is less resilient to changes and disturbances such as diseases or extreme weather events. To address this problem, it is crucial that we take immediate and effective measures. Reducing greenhouse gas emission is fundamental to slowing global warming and therefore the melting of the poles. Additionally, we need to invest in research and conservation, both in polar regions and other habitats affected by climate change. Each of us can contribute to this cause, from choosing renewable energy sources to reducing our plastic consumption. Every action counts. The fight against the melting of the poles and the loss of biodiversity is a global task that requires the governments, business and citizens. In conclusion, the melting of the poles and the decline in biodiversity are interconnected challenges that threaten the balance of our planet. We cannot afford inaction. We must act now with determination and responsibility to protect the fragile polar ecosystem and the rich biodiversity that sustain life on Earth.